the definition of a public space then? Like, what's the definition of a space that we're all allowed to inhabit at any point because it's just for the public use? Or once you become homeless, do you stop officially being a member of the public? Because that's what it seems like to me. It seems like you have citizen and non-citizen, and the second you transition to the lowest form of income or lowest bracket of income of, you know, being unhoused, you no longer qualify for any of the basic civilian amenities that cities are supposed to provide for all of us as just a bare minimum for us being citizens of the country and citizens within the city itself. I got a video here, a prime example, actually. I'm gonna get on my soapbox here for a moment, of why capitalism is just, take this off for me. Why capitalism is, you know, just not the greatest for breeding for breeding innovation, and why it's actually like pretty horrible. And this is a good and horrible time to talk about this, given the current winter blasting that the States is seeing, especially up in like the northeastern area. But this is a video about the anti-homeless streets that New York City is apparently building. I'm sure all of us are familiar with the anti-homeless, architecture that they have been implementing in many of our cities. Similar to, you know, I think what first came around, I hope what first came around at least, was the anti-skateboarding stuff. You know, first you saw little ledges on, or little bumps on ledges so skateboarders couldn't grind. And then I think someone had the bright idea of like, oh man, what if we did that to make people whose lives are already just absolutely horrible because of the crushing conditions we're all forced into together? What if we made their situation even more unbearable by making it completely as clear as possible that there is no space for them within our society and that we don't want them anywhere around us? So we're going to take a look at this horrifying new concept that innovation has brought us here in the States. Is that a bench? Is that supposed to be a bench that you can't lay down on? Because I would feel like I could still lay down on that personally, but maybe you can. But it's such a disgusting concept to me. And what's even worse is like something like this, it's almost passed off in a way where it's like, maybe it's art. It's not art. It's like the exact opposite of art in so many ways. It's soul crushing.
What the heck are these things? And why are there 5 of them?
The goal was to prevent homeless from sleeping under this bridge. Instead, it backlashed with outrage from the town.
Armrests in the middle of benches to large rocks added underneath bridges. Homeless advocates call these designs hostile architecture or anti-homeless.
They are. They're extremely hostile architecture. Stuff like this, like I was saying, it the same way that, like, you know, in a city I used to live in, the big shopping area downtown, at the end of the street, there was a bridge, and a lot of the unhoused people would camp out under this bridge, especially in the cold weather. It's protection from the rain, protection from the snow, and a place they can all gather and kind of look out for each other. When the big lighting ceremonies would happen, when they'd have all the lights down there in the shopping area, and a lot of people were coming in from out of town, you know, because it's over the holidays, so people are visiting family and stuff, cops would go down there and clear it out. And we're all familiar with this. When I went to San Diego for TwitchCon, I saw some things and heard some locals talking about everything the police do and did that time and do routinely to clear out the Bay Area and Convention Center area of unhoused people whenever big events like this happen. There's a lot of, like, you know, destroying their tents, moving them, throwing their stuff away. Like, it's like treating these people in desperate situations in one of the most inhumane ways possible. And it's something that capitalism basically demands, because no one wants to think about how they're so close to, like, getting to that. Like, we're all much closer to entering that situation than we are, you know, becoming real millionaires, and especially billionaires, and people don't want to be reminded of that. So there's always, like, complaints from the community to, like, do something about the unhoused. But what that usually ends up translating to is getting them out of our sight. The amount of money it takes to create anti-homeless architecture could easily feed dozens, if not hundreds, of homeless people. Exactly. Instead of actually adequately taking the funds and effort and community needed for these projects and pouring it into, you know, actual systemic change that could actually do good for people and help them maybe even reintegrate in society and start contributing once again, something capitalism ultimately approves of, it deems that investment too high and unnecessary, and there's always more workers around the corner. So why not just, after these people have cycled out and been dropped, just leave them dropped? You know, I hate that's not my backyard philosophy when it comes to homeless people too. Absolutely, they spend money on making anti-homeless architecture and destroying what little they have instead of actually focusing on programs and temporary housing. Exactly. There are identifiable and previously identified contributors to these systemic issues that we have, and instead of actually tackling those or having the difficult conversations that we need to have, which we can't do, we can't have those conversations here, because to have those conversations, we would need to talk about, you know, a systemic overhaul of rent, of housing, of the fact that hedge funds have access to real estate, you know, the real estate sector in general, driving rent and mortgages prices up insanely. It's another reason why this country and many of its leadership can't afford to have a conversation about places like the Congo or Palestine, because if we start establishing, you know, this is what these people are entitled to, this is what these people deserve, then we have to have that conversation not just about those people, but about everyone here. How are those standards we're pushing onto them or saying that they deserve, how does that hold up to the standards that we abide by here? What about not just for us? What about the Puerto Ricans? What about the Native Americans? You know, we have to start having some very deep conversations about what we and others of the Northern Hemisphere and European parts of the world, or any colonialist powers really, have done and taken from people, and how they have just trashed the quality of life of specific groups of people, whether it be separated by, you know, country, religion, socioeconomic status. It just depends on what box you're looking in at the moment, but you can pretty clearly draw a line anywhere you look in the world and say, so these are the people who are getting less than, these are the people who are getting. I understand there's the ruling and then the working class, and America does not want to have that conversation. And so instead of actually have conversations that could make us feel better or improve our lives or improve our situations, we're stuck doing awful, unspeakable shit like this to people who already have one of the most frustrating, tragic, and heartbreaking experiences I can think of. And in this weather right now that we're having, I mean, right now, I've been thinking about this all week, and I have to like actively try not to think about it sometimes because I obsess over it in ways, and there's nothing I can do as an individual. This is part of the reason I've been wanting to increase my volunteering this year, and like reconnect to the community and start doing something, feeling like I'm doing something. It's -7 outside with a real feel of -16 right now. There are people in my city, and probably in all of ours, right now, who are unhoused, and maybe they're in a shelter. I don't know. But I think about that, like, what the hell do these people do? Where do they go? Is anyone even paying attention to how many members of our community we're losing? And probably not, because I think the mass amount of people don't even consider these people part of their communities, and that's what's really sad. Like, to know that if in a couple months, if I had a set number of circumstances that left me unhoused, that like the rest of the world would let me go like that. They would stop making eye contact with me at all costs as they walk by me on the street like that. You know what I mean? That's incredibly heartbreaking and horrifying to me. It's absolutely unbelievable to me.
In Paris, you see spikes on windowsills. In D.C., a curved bench.
Hostile architecture is when cities put features in the architecture to try to keep homeless people away.
Spikes that would hurt people seems like a bad idea.
Yeah, I remember the first time I encountered this ever in my life. There was this in my hometown, Wichita, Kansas. There was apparently the same place Mr. Beast is from. I didn't know him growing up, but also the same place Amiru is from on Twitch. But anyway, we have this place in the downtown called Exploration Center. It's just like a science sort of place for children and families to go. They get exhibits every now and then. I don't want to say it's a museum, but it has like museum-esque features, kind of. It's also aerospace themed because airplanes are really big in Wichita, Kansas. That's where Boeing, Spirit, all those places are. Like, I don't know if they're headquartered, but they have big plants there. Anyway, the building itself was like round and had this slope. And we used to love to climb it, and it was actually really easy to climb because it had like these, going up, at least the first part of it, it had like these spikes everywhere, and you couldn't, like, they weren't spiky enough to where they'd stab through your shoes, but like you could grab onto them and kind of climb up it. And I remember anytime you go there for a field trip, teachers would hate it. And I didn't understand why that was there. And I remember I said something about it one time. I don't know if I was there with my family or there with school. Schools went there all the time for field trips because it was somewhere to go, you know? And especially when you were younger. I said something, and it was either one of my parents or a parent for like a volunteer field trip, because I can't remember. I was really young. But they said it's so people don't sleep there. And I was like, sleep there? And they're like, yeah, like homeless people, so they can't sleep there. And it was like a slant. And I remember thinking, like, who would want to sleep there anyway? And when I was older, that went from being like this fun thing that I climbed on to like this thing that I absolutely hated seeing. Because once, I don't know, it's like, it was, in some way it was like finding out Santa's not real, because like the magic was gone. Instead of thinking like there's this weird spike thing, all of a sudden that became something I could identify. And I was noticing all over our downtown, everywhere I looked, there was stuff like that everywhere. And you start to notice, I mean, I think a lot of us don't think about it, but you start to notice like, holy crap, like there's so, like you were saying, there's so much money and effort poured specifically behind the idea of unwelcoming a small portion of our community that needs the most help. I've never seen these. That's wild.
So this looks like a metal covering for the subway vent, which is underneath it. At first I thought it was a bench, but you can really only sit on this corner of it. You'll notice that the top of this is incredibly uneven.
Is it?
And then there's these raised ridges, which are on all 5 of them. And what happens if you try to lay down on it? Is that even possible? Is like the most uncomfortable thing I've ever experienced. This ridge right here is going into my spine, and that's on purpose, and this is called hostile architecture. And critics of hostile architecture say that usually these types of installations are cruel and unnecessary because they target the needy. And we're gonna look at a whole bunch.
Is that because heat is exhausted out of those vents and people lay on them? That's so fucked, dude.
Examples of this: subway benches that serve no purpose, a train station designed to make you go crazy, and several parks that look nice but were designed to be so uncomfortable that you'll leave after 5 or 10 minutes, and they're all here in New York. Now, hostile or defensive architecture...
Yeah, it really comes back to what the hell is the point of having benches and stuff like that if they're made in a way where no one's supposed to want to use them, or they're not very comfortable to use. It defeats the purpose of anyone using it. And the fact that it's targeting, oh my God, yeah, it's so gross. It's so disgusting.
It consists of public installations like this, which are designed to do one thing while preventing another thing. This right here is a normal uncovered subway grate. And in the wintertime, when it's cold out, someone with nowhere to go might want to use an area like this to help keep warm, because warm air comes out of here. And right now, New York City is experiencing record homelessness. And lately, both private developers and the city have been building all sorts of things like this, but they've got to be really sneaky about it, because when I found out what these were, it made me pretty uncomfortable to realize that they were specifically designed to stop people who have nothing from staying warm.
Yeah, I don't know that it was even really sneaky. I feel like it's immediately obvious what the fuck this is as soon as you look at it.
In the wintertime, is that okay? And sometimes when cities build stuff like this, people find out and get really upset. And that's what happened 2 years ago when the city started introducing hostile architecture to the subway system. This is the 23rd Street and 6th Avenue subway stop, and it looks like a normal subway station, but it was the site of heated controversy when the city subway, the MTA, introduced hostile architecture to this station. A couple years ago, riders noticed that the benches in this very same platform were suddenly removed. And as you can imagine, people were not happy about that, not only because of how
I can't believe, are they really trying to call that just wooden panel that you can lean your back against kind of a bench? Is that really, like, that's the innovation capitalism is bringing us? A bench without the seat part? That's just a wall, guy. You just made a wall bumper. Like, oh my God. Just don't even have anything there. Just let us lean up against the wall. It's so fucking
towards certain
stupid.
individuals, but also because the elderly, people who are pregnant, there's other people that need benches in the subway too, and this was a quality of life hit for everybody on this platform. And the benches were originally along this wall, and look at what the replacement is. Is this even a replacement? I mean, you can lean on it. I guess this is better
can't
than
believe
leaning
that.
yourself against the wall.
Is it? It's marginal at best. Oh my God, that's so crazy. That's so crazy, dude.
Dirty. It has spots for 4 leaners. Now there are 2
That's
benches
awesome.
in this platform.
That's awesome. Yeah, you don't want, make sure you segment it, because even now you need some sort of separator so someone couldn't lay on the top of this. What the fuck? Why are they segmenting it?
Spots for 4 leaners.
That's so
now
stupid.
there are 2 benches in this platform, which were put back after the city realized that their decision had outraged people. But
Put
even
back
these
with
have elements of
armrests,
hostile
yeah.
architecture in them. Look at these armrests. All you can do is sit here. You can't lay down. This is only like 2 feet wide. Its only purpose is for sitting. It is hostile to any other intended use. Look, you can't even be that wide in here. Some people even suggested the city had violated the Americans with Disabilities
Yeah,
Act.
that's actually a really good point. Yeah, okay, yeah, I could definitely see Americans with Disabilities Act being violated for handicapped people, especially elderly people, comes to mind for sure. And also, he brought up a good point. Like, you can't even be that wide in there. Americans notoriously on the bigger side in terms of the world's population. So I would think, if anything, we would all be against that, just for the sheer sake of, like, don't tell us what size we have to be to sit down. That's crazy. What are you, like, this is America. I'm allowed to be as big as I want. If I want to be a big boy, I can be a big boy.
By removing the benches. And this isn't the first time the city had done something like this. Check this out. A year earlier, the city had removed all of the seat backs from the benches on a subway station just a couple blocks south of this one. The city claims that once they did that, they saw a reduction in the number of people loitering on the platform, along with an increase in the number of passengers who were on the
I'll fix that. They saw a reduction in the number of people seeking shelter from the elements on the platform.
Waiting for trains, but by removing the seat backs from the benches that were already there, they essentially did exactly what this is by creating something that's less functional and lowers everyone's quality of use when they're in the subway.
Exactly.
And I'm noticing that this is a trend, because look at all the people standing with nowhere to sit. You see these concrete patches right here? There was something here. It was probably a
That's
bench. It looks to
crazy.
be about that wide.
And obviously, like, while I am upset for the patrons, like, they have nowhere to sit, that's honestly secondary to me, for the fact that, like, we as a society have moved to a point where we're not even comfortable with someone who has nowhere to sleep sleeping around us outside. That's, I don't know, man. That's so hard for me to sit with. I get it. Like, I get how it's a thing, because I grew up in the same America. I felt the same way and uncomfortable around people without homes, but I don't know.
There's one other over here by the door, and there are no benches anywhere else. Just one more spot to lean right over there. And before we look at how the city is using these same type of designs at a brand new train station and a bunch of public parks, it's important to understand that this is exposing the dark side of this type of architecture, because there might be benefits as far as the orderliness of the subway system is concerned, but New York City gets pretty cold in the wintertime, and the subway is a place
I wonder if this is that same subway where New York City deployed that cop, that robot cop. Yeah, this thing. It's not a triangle. It just looks like an egg. Mayor Adams. I'm pretty sure. I don't know what platform he was using it on, but this was like, what was this, like 3 months ago, 4 months ago, something like that? Oh, I can't. Okay. Watch on YouTube. 3 months ago, yeah. This stupid thing.
450 pounds. Nightscope K5.
Is that because everyone wondered what the hell is this thing going to be actually be used for? How can it help with any crimes? And now I think it's maybe clear.
A security robot.
If no one pointed it out at first, and I'm sure they did, this is probably its sole purpose is probably to identify loiterers.
He'll be on duty patrolling the Times Square station from 12 a.m. to
Times
6 a.m.
Square.
K5 will be recording video in case of emergencies, not audio or using facial recognition. He also has a button that you can press to talk to a live person. The city will determine his effectiveness at the end of...
That's wild, dude. That's wild. Spending money on shit like that, but not on actually helping members of our community.
Needing New Yorkers go when they have nowhere else to go so that they don't freeze. And yes, the city has shelters, but they have a rather poor reputation. And because of New York's
I feel like I'm back in jail, dude. Oh my God. That's saying something, because American prison systems are fucking insane, dude. They're so inhumane. They don't have heating in the cold. They don't have AC in the heat. They still use solitary confinement, which is actually one of the... It's a form of torture. It's actually a form of torture. For a person to be saying, I feel like I'm back in an American prison system in a unhoused shelter is absolutely... indicative of how much our current system gives a shit about people in general. But that's why I wish more people would rally to this fight, because like I was saying with the Palestine and Congo thing earlier, fighting for your most vulnerable is a fight for all of our basic rights. It's a fight. It's literally a fight for all of us. It's making sure that we're all taken care of. It's making sure that we all are guaranteed a safe relatively and happy relatively experience, which supposedly are values that our Constitution holds extremely dear to its heart. But don't let that fool you. If you lose your wages and you stop contributing, well then no one's gonna look at you in the face ever again, and we will chase you out of every town you dare to come too close to.
In crisis, the shelter system's already maxed out. And since the shelters are perceived as being dangerous, it makes tons of sense that people would rather take their chances in a place like this. And removing subway benches doesn't do anything to make people less homeless. They're still homeless, even if you remove the benches, and they've still got nowhere to go. And most critics of these types of policies, they want a clean subway too.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. But the truth is they don't care. Like, cities do not care about the fact that people are still homeless. They're hoping they leave the area. They're hoping, like, I remember my hometown took a pretty aggressive stance at one point where we were like, we're going to try and get the unhoused population out of our parks. And they literally basically meant outside county lines. Like, we're just going to get them out of our county into some other county, and then we don't care. Just shift them away. Like conservative governors and taking immigrants and refugees, putting them on planes and just literally human trafficking them to other cities in other states because they're like, oh, just not here. Just get them out of here. You know, absolutely crazy. Like Greg Abbott and fucking Ron DeSantis.
It's fair to take from people who already have so little. And the city's subsequent removal of benches here and reinstallation of different benches that basically let the city know that if they're gonna do stuff like this, they've got to be sneakier about it, and they have been, as we're about to see.
I like the song. It's got like a Dr. Dre feeling.
Isn't that wild? This is a pretty impressive train station, but there are some serious problems with it that we'll get into. But first, it's important to understand that many aspects of this design and other hostile designs are nice. Nice to look at, not necessarily nice to use. But this is called the Moynihan Trail, and it is the newest train station in New York City. Building it cost over $1 billion, and it was completed just a couple of years ago. It also has this gorgeous glass ceiling, which is a throwback to Penn Station's original design. Penn Station is where Madison Square Garden is. That's directly across the street. And this is what that used to look like. Wow. And as far as train stations go, this is pretty nice. Look, there's a full Walgreens in here. There's an eatery with a bunch of restaurants, the ticketing areas.
My Midwest brain can literally not even fathom that this is a train. We have Union Station here in Kansas City, and it is not like this at all. It's also not even an active train station anymore. There's a tram downtown that runs on a track around a little area. That's it. This is absolutely wild to me. I wish public transit was more of a thing everywhere. This is wild.
Here's gorgeous, but there's one glaring flaw. And no, it's not that fixing the expensive glass roof is something that takes a while and is hard to do. Look at the size of that cherry picker they got right there. Do you see the problem? There's no seats. And that's why every single person in this billion-dollar terminal is standing. And
Holy
it's a
shit.
train station. The only thing there is to do here
is wait
for things
that's
to happen.
crazy.
Not a seat in the whole place.
I will say though, that's actually exactly what Kansas City's is like. But again, not an active train station. There's just a couple restaurants in there, and it's somewhat of a museum. So I guess that kind of makes sense. Now I talk about it.
Some benches in here so people have a place to sit.
That's a great idea.
It is, right?
That is a great idea.
Did you know they spent over $1 billion making this and they didn't put benches?
Not a single bench. I mean, they have
That's
those lounges
insane.
over there, but that's for people that have tickets.
Yeah, you gotta pay.
Yeah.
Like Spirit Airlines.
Right.
Oh, you want a seat? You gotta pay. Now, having no
That's
benches
insane.
could be a ploy from
You
these...
have to pay to sit down, dude. You have to pay to sit down. I guess I really hope they meant like if you have a ticket, you can sit down. If you have to pay an additional fee just to go into that sitting area and sit down, it's like that freaking Doctor Who episode when they were in that space station and there was no air in the space station. There was only air provided by the suits, and every breath you paid for. So the company was like charging their workers while they were breathing air, mining, and doing the things they were supposed to do. It's like that level of capitalism, dude. We're literally just charging your fucking existence in a physical space.
corporations to get you to go inside and spend money. And it seems to be working. There's a lot of people over here. But the lack of seating is a deliberately hostile choice. People just plop their stuff down on the floor. And if you're wondering why nobody's trying to sit on the floor, that's because security will find you and make you stand up. And to be fair, this old image...
No shot, dude. No shot. They have security patrolling to prevent anyone from sitting on the floor. I would actually lose my mind. I would lose my mind if I was sitting on the floor resting. What if it's like a disabled person or like someone in crutches and they just don't want to stand for a minute, dude? Holy shit. Oh my God, that's crazy. How are more people not angry about this? That reminds me of like in my dumbass private school, dude, that I grew up in. You would actually in middle school, from middle school forward, there was a policy that you could not fall down at recess. Recess was only 5 minutes long, so you didn't exactly have an opportunity. I'm not kidding. Recess was 5 minutes long. We would go outside for 5 minutes after lunch, and then they would bring us back inside, go back to learning. It was insane. But when you have an extra class, religion, throughout the day, you gotta squeeze it in somehow. So, I remember we had like demerit cards, and if you filled out a demerit card, you got a detention. A second one, you got in-school suspension. A third one, out-of-school suspension. That's how it worked. And you would literally get a demerit if you got caught on the ground. And it's like, even if you fell. And I remember when they explained that to us, I like argued a little with like the teacher. First it was like a clarification thing. I was asking a question. And then I was like somewhat argumentative because, dude, what the hell? We can't fall down. I don't even control that. We don't even control that. Sometimes you fall down accidentally. And I guess I remember thinking that was so weird. Like, what, we're too old to fall? You're just not allowed to fall as an adult? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. This is giving me that. It's like that same outrage I had of just like, that's the most arbitrary bullshit I've ever heard my entire life.
Penn Station, look, I see some seats down here at the bottom, so maybe there were more seats there
That's
than
crazy.
there are here in its reimagination. But you know, the old station is mostly open space, and what that could mean is that open space is a great Spartan design for a public train station in New York City. And you know, the way to answer that is to go across the street to the ugliest building in town, which is also a train station. Look at that. It's the same deal. 1 hour limit, and you got to have a ticket to get into the waiting area.
That's insane. Okay, so you do just have to have the ticket. That's still fucked. That's still fucked. It's not as bad as you have to pay an additional fee to enter the space at all, but that's still horrific. And classist. Straight up classist. 100% classist. And at the end of the day, that's what all of this is. And that's another problem with this. By keeping this rhetoric going that we're all, wanting them to move out of our spaces, get out of our cities, in appeasing that, I don't know, instinct of just shooing them away, it's also preventing us from realizing that this is a classist thing that goes to prevent us from developing class consciousness as the working class, and keep us from realizing, like I was saying earlier, that a fight for these people's rights is a fight for all of our rights. A fight for their quality of life is a fight for all of our quality of lives and our children's.
Everyone else in this beautiful piece of New York City architecture is standing or walking. I love the 1970s aluminum ceiling. The floor reminds me of my elementary school. And look at this. These are those crazy old school drop tile ceilings. Now, this certainly isn't modern, new, or fancy by any stretch of the imagination, but it's eerily similar to what's across the street, because all this open space with no seats, that's hostile architecture. At least the new monitors are bright, but this is another design where absolutely nothing about it is meant to be comfortable. Luckily, there are seats inside some of the little restaurants over here, which you'll be paying for. And look,
it's kind of occurring to me now that airports were based off of train stations, huh? Because this is giving like the same energy. I know that's like a completely separate train of thought right now, but I don't have a lot of train stations near me, but these are very similar to the airports near me.
The wall is even roped off for some reason. Maybe it's because they've got this fancy tile and this artwork on it, and they don't want people who have nowhere to sit leaning on it. But back in 2020, loitering in this station and in Grand Central caused economic issues for small businesses.
That's confusing, though. How come in one subway station they were like making benches against the wall to encourage people to lean on them? Oh my God, there's 3 cops literally. Police check on homeless woman inside terminal. I like how it says check on instead of prevent from sitting and remove, throw out of subway terminal. Check on. Bullshit, you checked on them. That's absolutely, what a fucking joke. 3 cops checked on? Yeah, I'm sure. There's not, that doesn't look like they're there to intimidate her or them at all. I can't actually tell. Homeless people at New York train stations are reportedly making other people's lives a misery. Shut the fuck up, dude. Oh my God. Pictured a homeless person approaches people inside Penn Station. Oh my God. This is what I can't stand, dude. This perspective of like, oh, they just make me so uncomfortable because their situation's so sad. Yeah, it is. You know what would be great? If we started working towards a system or society where that happened less often, if not at all. That would be revolutionary. That would be crazy, wouldn't it? Oh my God.
You're paying rent. And in addition to building
how is the solution in that person's mind to punish the person who makes them sad, as opposed to, oh my God, dude. Oh my God. I get it. We all grew up in the same propaganda. We all grew up in the same bullcrap rhetoric, but oh my God, it's coming to the, it's doing all the math right and somehow getting the most wrong answer you possibly could, dude.
Not conducive to comfort in any manner. The city stepped up security, but unfortunately this is a 24-hour facility, and those most negatively impacted by hostile architectural design and policing were those who needed a place when it was cold out. But New York doesn't just limit hostile architecture to the inside of buildings. Now it's on the outside as well. And no, I'm not talking about how they roped off all the steps at the post office so no one can sit here. Back in the day, you could climb the steps. There are doors over here, but now look, they got it all roped off. It's
That's
just
insane.
Here looking pretty. Very pretty.
So what's the definition of a public space then? Like, what's the definition of a space that we're all allowed to inhabit at any point because it's just for the public use? Or once you become homeless, do you stop officially being a member of the public? Because that's what it seems like to me. It seems like you have citizen and non-citizen, and the second you transition to the lowest form of income or lowest bracket of income of, you know, being unhoused, you no longer qualify for any of the basic civilian amenities that cities are supposed to provide for all of us as just a bare minimum for us being citizens of the country and citizens within the city itself. But I guess not. I guess somehow you can get those inherent things taken away just because people are a little bummed out by your presence. It's absolutely fucking ridiculous. Like, public water fountains are basically gone. Anytime I see a public water fountain, I always test it to see if it works. It almost never does. Why? I don't know. Maybe because someone noticed along the way that, like, oh, unhoused people tend to hang out near city supplied water sources. It's almost like humans need water. Well, we wouldn't want them to live, would we? I guess we better shut all those off and make sure everyone buys their own water and brings it with them anywhere they go. Same way with like New York trying to do cashless stores, other big cities trying to do cashless stores. They had to like bring legislation to stop that because they were like, dude, you can't have a cashless store that only takes cards. You're clearly just trying to target the lower income people and the homeless people who come in with quarters and dollars and shit. You literally have to let these people be able to buy food somewhere, use the bathroom somewhere. Like, it's incredible. It's not even incredible. It's heartbreakingly it's I can't even make words, dude. It's infuriating how like just how little these people are begging for and still being just given the finger on every avenue based off of society's treatment of them and capitalism's treatment of them.
I'm not talking about this. I'm talking about something way worse.
What is the deal with this bench? Oh, it's just
this
skinny.
Isn't really comfortable. I can't believe whoever designed this calls this a bench and got away with it. It's actually like a
log.
barrier if you think about it. This is the Highline Park, and it's actually a park built upon an old railway track, which means many parts of it are skinny and narrow, but it's also very long. It goes like 15 blocks. There be some of the old train tracks right there underneath us, and I'm guessing that these barrier benches serve to move the flow of traffic down the park. And I guess they don't want big groups inside these little triangle areas. Oh, look, another awkward place to sit.
Dude.
I feel like I'm a little close to the traffic here. And this is what happens if you try to lay down on it. Look, my shoulders and arms are falling off the side. What a bizarre way to construct something. There's no way you're going to sit on a bench like this for very long. Maybe just long enough to eat a sweet green salad. And look at this geometric nightmare right here. I bet people were getting hurt on this thing. That's why they had to rope it off. You can see that these two benches are...
They build so much shit just to rope it off now. They build all this stuff for us to not walk on, and then it's all concrete, so water's also being displaced, not actually absorbing into the earth. Like, what's the point of it then? If we can't walk on it, if we can't drive on it, if it's just there to look at because it looks nice, but also to shoo homeless people away, then I think we're creating floodplains with our concrete jungles unintentionally, even more than we ever have been before at this point. It's absolutely insane.
Basically here to tell this traffic to go this way and to have this traffic come this way. Only someone with a college degree could have come up with this. I know because I have a degree. Now, in spite of how this entire section of the park is textbook hostile architecture, that changes in this area that opens up, because over here we've got what seems to be an actual seat. This is definitely better than the awkward bench. And I'm pretty sure the designers of this park envisioned it as an urban pathway that leads north to south along Manhattan's west side, with some areas being akin to a nature walk and others doubling as observation points. Isn't that cool? You can look down here, see the street.
I don't like heights, so I wouldn't really like that much.
It's definitely a beautiful park. If you're ever around here, you should come out here and walk on it and sit on it. And from time to time, they will put in very bizarre art installations like this pink tree, which probably symbolizes something. Also of note, this is a private park and it does close at a certain point. So it's not...
That's insane, dude. That's insane. Who owns it? Did it say? Private park people, Highline Pleasant. Did he get the whole sign?
Is something. Also of...
Damn it. No smoking, no bicycles, no pets, no skateboarding, skates, or recycling, no drinking alcohol.
No, this is a private park and it does close at a certain
all they're missing is the no income, no entry
point. So it's not like Central Park where you should expect to be able to go in and leave at any point you want. Check out these hostile bleachers. Maybe it's modern.
Oh my god,
it's
dude.
Futuristic, but it's not exactly comfortable. And there's about as much legroom here as Spirit Airlines will give you. I don't think you could stay here for a very long period of time. And maybe that's the point. But what if a group of people went to a place that was filled with hostile architecture here in New York
and burned it down
to stay there? What would happen? That's what we're gonna go find out. Welcome to Zuccotti Park, the most hostile piece of architecture we're gonna see today. So today I'm doing hostile architecture, like this, right? It's disgusting. And I think this is the most cruel park in New York because this granite gets so cold just sitting on it. Absolutely. Made me freeze my butt off.
Damn.
And look at how high the ridges are sticking up out of this thing.
I wonder if they use granite specifically because it gets so cold, which again, we're at this point, we're sacrificing I don't understand the point, because the point is supposed to make it usable for people with income but unusable for people without income, but then the people with income don't even want to use it because it's so uncomfortable or cold or whatever it is that they don't even use it, so then no one's using it. So what is the point? What is the actual point of any of this waste of money, waste of effort, waste of construction, when we could actually be doing things to improve our very real situations around us for people in our communities?
Granite tables are equally cruel and unforgiving. And look at all these nightmarish angles with like the way that this plant is.
Just
the whole
looks
thing
stupid.
is like
It looks
designed
terrible
for crowd control. But back in 2011, this park was the site of the Occupy Wall Street movement, where protesters camped out in this park for about a month. See this image right here with that red bar behind that guy? That was taken right over here. And whether you agree with their message or not, it took a lot of determination to stay in this place for more than 15 minutes. I mean, it is just a barren landscape. And yes, there are trees, but look at their position. They're only designed to eliminate crowds of people. Between these benches, these trees, and these weird plant boxes right here, it's tough to have like
they're not even growing anything in here. Like, what the hell? They could at least put a tree in. What is the point of this at this point? It's just a dirt patch.
And look at this little ridge that just kind of winds along here and goes up into the stairs. The whole thing is just, whoever built it...
Oh my God, Maze Bank Arena. Isn't that the Maze Bank Arena thing?
Wanted it to be here, and they wanted it to be looked at, and that's about it. Also, the protesters weren't here during the summer either. They were here from mid-October until about the end of November. It gets cold at night here in New York. Now, yes, the Occupy Wall Street movement did have significant support. There were a lot of people who donated and helped the people that were here stay here as long as they could with things like sleeping bags and food. There was even a library, and there was Wi-Fi here in the park. I'm sure there were bathrooms too, because I don't see any. Now, since 2011, the same type of mass takeover of this park hasn't happened before, and I guess these awful benches, I guess they do deter, but is that really how we want to build things? Should we build things in New York in a way that maybe doesn't lower everyone's standard of living all at the exact same time? Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching.
Man.
I'll see you in the next one.
Man, yeah, wouldn't it be absolutely insane if we tried to improve the lives of everyone? That would be so cool. That would be so rad. Oh, God. Yeah, so that's what New York's up to. Sadly, New York and all cities are kind of up. This is the new playbook, is to, you know, just make hostile architecture and chase the unhoused out of our areas. It's absolutely awful. It works against all of our standards of living and standards of lives. It, like he said, rightfully so, it lowers the quality of lives and quality of spaces for all of us, not just the unhoused. It serves truly no one and is a waste of money and resources. And it seems like overwhelmingly people disapprove of it, at least in New York, since there's protests about them when they crop up these anti-homeless architecture things, or these hostile architecture things, and they have even moved to doing it, trying to do it in a more sneaky way. Like, this is absolutely one of my least favorite parts of American city cultures. Maybe this is a thing outside of America, but I've only ever been in the States, so I can't speak to that. But I just wanted to cover that because it's been on my mind ever since I saw this video come across my For You page. Just want to watch it, kind of get my thoughts on the whole situation, because this is stuff I've gone on rants about for years now. I go on rants about hostile architecture when I see it out in public frequently. It's I don't know if pet peeve's the right word, but it's an evil. It's an evil, I think, in our society that I absolutely hate a lot, and I think we should all rally against it, because, like I said, fighting for the lives of our most vulnerable is fighting for the lives of all of us. That's all I got today.